He helped build the most secret weapon in human history. And he gave every page of it away. Not for money, not for revenge, for an idea. This is the story of a man who believed so completely that he handed one superpower the blueprint of another, and then went back to work the next morning, as if nothing had happened. He was born in a parsonage in Rüsselsheim, in the Grand Duchy of Hesse, on the 29th of December 1911. His father, Nevill Fuchs, was a Lutheran pastor, a gentle, stubborn man who had served in the German army during the First World War and come home a pacifist. Emil joined the Social Democrats in 1912. He taught his 4 children that conscience came before obedience. He taught them, in particular, to say no. Klaus was the 3rd child, quiet, careful, good at mathematics. The family was not a happy one. In October 1931, Klaus's mother drank hydrochloric acid and died. It later emerged that her own mother had also taken her life. Klaus's older sister Elizabeth would kill herself in 1939 by throwing herself in front of a train. His other sister Christel would spend much of her adult life hospitalized with severe mental illness. Whatever warmth the Fuchs household had came from the father. Whatever silence it carried came from somewhere older. Klaus went to the University of Leipzig and then to Kiel, where his father had taken a teaching post. He studied mathematics and physics. He also studied politics. And in Weimar, Germany, in the early 1930s, politics studied you back. He joined the Student Social Democrats. He joined their paramilitary wing, which patrolled the streets against the Nazi brown shirts. But in the 1932 presidential election, when the Social Democrats backed Hindenburg, Fuchs broke with them. He spoke in public for the communist candidate, Ernst Thälmann. He was expelled from the Social Democrats and joined the Communist Party of Germany. It is a detail worth holding on to. Klaus Fuchs did not become a communist in Moscow, or in Los Alamos, or in a London pub. He became one in a lecture hall at 20, watching his country fall apart. In February 1933, the Reichstag burned. The Nazis blamed the communists. Fuchs was now, legally, a hunted man. He later said he spent the morning after the fire on a train, having quietly and surreptitiously removed his hammer and sickle lapel pin, reading a newspaper and pretending to be someone else. Friends hid him for months. In the summer, the party ordered him out. His physics, they told him, would be more useful abroad than his body would be in a camp. On the 24th of September, 1933, Klaus Fuchs arrived in England. He was 21 years old. He was taken in by a Quaker family near Bristol, and then by the physicist Nevill Mott at the University of Bristol, who supervised his PhD. In 1937 he moved to Edinburgh to work under Max Born, another refugee, another theorist, another man for whom physics was a kind of home. Fuchs earned a second doctorate, a DSc, and was on his way to a quiet academic career. Then the war came. And because Fuchs was, on paper, a German citizen, the British interned him. He spent the second half of 1940 behind wire, first on the Isle of Man, then in a camp in Quebec. He slept on a straw mattress. He taught theoretical physics to other internees on the back of cigarette packets. Max Born wrote letters. Christmas Day, 1940, Fuchs boarded a ship back to Britain. Within months, he was working on the atomic bomb. The British project was called Tube Alloys. Its lead theorist, Rudolf Peierls, yet another German refugee, needed a mathematician who could handle the equations of uranium fission. Fuchs was recommended, and by May 1941 he was at work. Almost immediately, through a friend, the economist Jürgen Kuczynski, he reached out to a man named Simon Creamer, who worked out of the Soviet embassy in London for Red Army military intelligence. Fuchs offered the Russians everything he knew. A year later, in 1942, he signed the Official Secrets Act and was granted British citizenship. By that point, he had already been spying for a year. He was not recruited. He volunteered. In late 1943, Fuchs and Peierls sailed to New York as part of the British mission to the Manhattan Project. Their first assignment was not Los Alamos at all. It was a set of laboratories at Columbia University on the uptown Manhattan side of the project, a place trying to solve a different problem entirely. How do you separate the tiny amount of fissile uranium-235 out of the much larger mass of uranium-238? The method under study was gaseous diffusion. Fuchs spent 8 months on it, and then, in August 1944, he moved south, to a mesa in New Mexico called Los Alamos, and to Hans Bethe's theoretical physics division. His specialty, almost immediately, became the hardest problem in the building: implosion. Here the story needs a short detour, because implosion is the thing that made Fuchs so dangerous. A uranium bomb is, roughly speaking, a gun. You fire one piece of uranium into another, fast enough, and you get a chain reaction. It is crude, but it works. A plutonium bomb cannot be built that way. Plutonium is too reactive. The gun method fizzles. Instead, you take a sphere of plutonium and you crush it. You surround it with precisely shaped high explosives, and you detonate them at the same instant, so that the shock wave squeezes the sphere inwards from every direction at once. The sphere becomes denser. The chain reaction begins. The city disappears. The hard part is the shaping of those explosives, the lenses. Get it wrong by a microsecond and nothing happens. Get it right, and you have Nagasaki. Fuchs worked on those calculations, and then he wrote them down by hand and passed them to a chemist named Harry Gold, whose code name was Raymond. Their very first meeting was on a sidewalk off East Broadway in New York in early 1944. Fuchs carrying a tennis ball and a green-covered book, Gold carrying a pair of gloves. They met again on other New York street corners, and at his sister Crystal's home in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and later on a bridge in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Gold took the pages to a Soviet handler. The pages went to Moscow. From Moscow, they went to a laboratory outside the city, where Igor Kurchatov read them, and understood that the Americans had solved the problem, and understood now how. On the 16th of July 1945, the United States tested the first atomic bomb in the New Mexico desert. On the 29th of August 1949, the Soviet Union tested its own. The American device was called Trinity. The Soviet device was called First Lightning. They were, in their essential design, the same bomb. Historians still argue about exactly how much time Fuchs saved the Soviets. Most estimates fall between 6 months and 2 years, and the debate is not settled. The end came from a different direction. American code breakers on a project called Venona had been slowly decrypting old Soviet cables. By 1949, a pattern pointed at a British scientist in New Mexico. The name surfaced: Fuchs. MI5 sent an interrogator named William Scarden, a soft-voiced former policeman who did not threaten and did not raise his voice. He met Fuchs 4 times. On the 4th meeting, on the 24th of January 1950, Fuchs confessed. His trial at the Old Bailey lasted less than 90 minutes. He was sentenced to 14 years, the maximum. He served 9. Britain had already stripped him of his citizenship in 1951, while he was still in prison. When he was released in 1959, a plane took him to East Berlin. On the tarmac at Schönefeld, a woman he had known as a student, Grete Keilson, was waiting. They married that September. He spent the rest of his life in East Germany, as deputy director of a nuclear research institute at Rossendorf, just outside Dresden. He never publicly apologized for what he had done. He never publicly boasted about it either. He gave lectures, signed papers, went home. He died in East Berlin on the 28th of January 1988, a decorated citizen of a country that would itself disappear less than 3 years later. And this is where the story loops back to that quiet man at Los Alamos. The one Beth liked, the one Oppenheimer trusted. He He was not a double agent, not a mercenary, not a man turned by blackmail. He was a physicist who had watched the Reichstag burn and decided at 21 that no single country could be trusted with the bomb alone. He made that decision alone. He kept it alone for nearly a decade. From his first Soviet contact in 1941 to his confession in 1950. And when the world finally caught him, he did not deny it, because in his own mind, he had never done anything wrong. That is the unnerving part, not the secrets he stole, the certainty he carried all the way to the end, that stealing them had been the right thing to do. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe for more.